I was born in 1966 and I grew up in Asbury Park, New Jersey. My family grew up on welfare and some would even say poverty. And life around us was rough, but so was life at home. My mom and dad used to fight all the time. They would fight constantly. My dad would get drunk and beat my mom, and then the cops would come. Then he'd get drunk again and beat her, and the cops would come again. And it just went on like this for a really long time. And whenever they would fight, I'd be scared and sad. My older brother, whenever I would look at him, I remember him being angry. Every time they fought, he'd be angry. And sometimes when the fighting got really bad and I couldn't take it, I would run outside, and we lived in this old brick building. And I'd just be so frustrated sometimes that I would, scrape my fist up against the brick building just so I could, release some of the frustration. But also I thought, like, if I go inside and my parents see that I'm bleeding, that then they're going to stop fighting. But they never noticed, and they continued to fight. And it went on like this until I was 7. We came home from school one day, my brother and I, and they sat us down and they told us that they were going to get a divorce. When they got divorced, the judge let me and my brother decide which parent we wanted to live with. So my brother went with my dad, and I decided to go and live with my mom. After the divorce, my mom started drinking a lot. She never used to drink until my parents got separated. And I'd come home from school sometimes and find her laying in vomit or laying in her own urine. And of course, because of the divorce, there's visitation. So sometimes I'd go to my dad, and my brother would come over and stay with me and my mom. And only thing I remember from the weekends at my dad's is that at night he would make us macaroni so that we could eat. And the memory that my brother had of being at my mom's was that she would beat him and not feed him and lock him in the closet because she said that he looked like our dad. And I never knew that this was going on. He didn't reveal this to me until we were much older. But when I was around 9 or 10, my mom got cirrhosis of the liver from alcoholism, and she actually ended up passing away. And I had to go move back in with my dad. And it was just more of the same. If anything, his drinking got worse. He drank even more. And I think it's because he felt like it was his fault that my mom had passed away. And so I don't know, maybe I kind of felt that way too. But when I think I was about 14, or it was about to be my 15th birthday. I just had it with my dad. I got really fed up, and I told him off, and I told him he was scum, and every bad thing that I wanted to say to him, I said to him. And 2 weeks before my 15th birthday, he hung himself. After my dad passed away, my older brother, who is 17 now, he said that he was going to get a job and get an apartment, and he was going to take care of me. We were going to live together. And I thought, finally, our lives are going to get better. I'm going to be living with my older brother, and it's going to be a good time. But my brother had a really, really, really bad temper. And whenever we get into arguments, or even if I wanted to do something just as simple as like stand up for myself or share my opinion about something, he would beat me up. And so for most of my life growing up, what I saw was love was actually violence. And I was always scared and always trying to fit in. And I really felt like I was no different from an animal. I was always trying to survive. And I'm sure it was because of all of these things that I ended up getting into drug use. And me and my brother, we would use together. And our friends would come over to the place, and we would use too. And it started off with just like simple stuff, like, weed and drinking, stuff that teenagers do. But eventually it got into heavier things, and I would use just about anything just to be high. And this went on for a really long time, all the way up until our 40s. And when my brother was in his early 40s, I think he was about 42, he actually died of a heart attack. It had nothing to do with drugs, but he had a heart attack. And when he passed away, my drug use just continued to spiral out of control. And sometimes I'd wake up in a pool of my own blood from having fallen and fractured something on my face, broken my nose. It was just It was not good. And we had a friend of ours in our 20s. He said he wanted to be an actor, so he took off and he moved to LA, and he did it. He ended up being really, really successful, but he always stayed in touch. And I guess word got back around to him that I was doing really bad. And so he called me one day and he was like, "Look, do you want to live or do you want to die?" And I didn't know. I could not give him an answer at that moment. So I told him, like, "Can I please call you back, because I really need to think about it." And so I thought about it and decided that I do want to live and that I don't want to die. And so I called him and I told him, "Look, buddy, like, yeah, I want to live." And so he flew me out to Malibu and he put me up in rehab for a full year. And it was in rehab at the age of 49 that I got therapy for the first time, that I actually got to sit and process everything that happened in my life for the first time. And what stuck out most to me was the moment where my therapist asked me, she was like, "What's your passion?" And again, I'm like, I don't know, who asked? Nobody's ever asked me what my passion was. And if anything, I didn't have one because I never felt good enough to have one. I never had an opinion about anything in my life. I never really had a voice about anything that I had in my life. I didn't care enough to have anything to say about my life. And once I completed rehab, my buddy, actually, he was working on a film and he gave me a small role in that film. And it was while I was doing the film that I fell in love with acting, and I fell in love with philosophy through acting, and just found a lot of healing through the arts. And as I was healing through the arts, I joined NA, Narcotics Anonymous, and we would go to these detention centers and talk to the youth and, hopefully try to save them from going down the paths that we went down. And I shared my story. And this particular young person came up to me afterwards. It was like, "Thank you so much for sharing with me. I actually was thinking about taking my life, but because of what you shared with me, I think I'm going to talk to my parents about what's going on and just, have a conversation rather than ending things." And it was at that exact moment that I understood purpose. It was at the age of 49 for the first time that I had hope and that I had a dream and that I had a reason why I was here on earth. And so now I just continue to share my story. I continue to give back in whatever way that I can and continue to pursue acting as well. My name is Asmaou Kourouma, and I empathize with a 53-year-old Italian-Irish man, and our blood bleeds red.